that plays that the lead guy's really good though. It's that he's silent, he doesn't talk.
I
It's all
bet
done
you
fine.
are a freak. Right, I can't watch horror films with Chris because Chris doesn't watch horror films like a normal person. He watches them from with the mind of like a filmmaker. So you'll be watching the most terrifying thing you've ever seen in your life, and he was like, "Oh, what a cool effect! I wonder how they got that." I'm sitting there shitting myself, feeling completely alone. We watched it. I hadn't seen the It remake.
Chapter 1's really good. I highly recommend everybody watches Chapter 1.
We watched It Chapter 1 for Halloween. I was shitting myself.
Yeah,
At one
not
point,
happy.
I had to go to the toilet. I was like, "Will you come to the toilet with me?"
I had to come down the stairs because you wanted you went
Downstairs with me. I had to get a drink, and you had to come down with me. I had to turn every light on. So I was.
It was one, in your defence, it was one of the loudest. I don't want to spoil the beginning bits, but there is a moment which had one of the loudest and most visceral audience reactions and it's within the first couple of minutes.
When you saw it in the cinema, didn't you?
Saw it in the cinema, and it was if I just say the bit with the drain. If you've seen the Tim Curry one, it goes a little bit further, but I don't think people were quite expecting it to go that with it.
It was honestly, it was horrible. It was a horrible film.
Yeah.
You are the worst person to watch horror films with because you are a psycho. He does not get scared by any horror film. He's just like,
It's not real.
Well, if you go, the
We don't like watching horror films at all. I think
real light to come for you now.
I don't jump scare. I don't get really scared, but I quite like films when it's more things that make you think. The more real it can be, that makes when it gets a wee bit. Also, when I was younger, I didn't really jump. I still jump scared a lot more, but
it's been so overdone now. You're just waiting for the jump scare.
Yeah,
hesitate.
Not me. I'm like a newborn baby. Every new horror film I watch, like the first time, maybe it'll work out.
What you're referring to is the bit where, unfortunately, you would mention like Dutch Tilt or whatever. There's a bit of a joke, but like there is a bit in is it the first or the second? First one, and it's just there's a bit with a camera move. It's really well executed, and you, like everyone else was in the cinema with, jumped the fuck out of their skin when it happened. But because of that little move, I'm like, just that microsecond of I know where you're going with this is enough.
Are you the one that falls for the false jump scare where they're like thinking it's something? It's just a wee snapping.
Oh yeah, that's fine. I know. I know. I don't fall for that. That's hack stuff.
Yeah. But that was well executed. That's what I mean. I'm not dissing it. I could see it, but other people would not be able to see it. And actually, the scares in it are genuinely quite good. It's also just I was going to say it's a good story. It's a good refinement of Stephen King's somewhat
batshit crazy
scary
fever dream.
Yes, but I know it's really good. But anyway, speaking about really horrible things, the public transport in this country. We are recording. Yes. So this is a long fucking time coming. We're finally, we've given you enough time, Scottish Government, but we're doing an episode on ScotRail.
Stevie can happening.
Not just just public transport in general.
I'm here to talk about the fucking trains. I don't know about everybody else.
I want to learn about trains.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't want to. I'm going to go. I don't want to, but
I have things to say. So what about ferries? Right, going well
now. So I went down to London last month, and not for the first time when being in London, I was amazed by this thing that they've got that works so well called Transport for London, whereby you can pick one of your debit or credit cards, and as long as you stick to that one, you just tap in and tap out, tap onto buses, tap in to trains and out of trains, underground, overground, wombling free. And at the end of the day, it tots up what journeys you'd made and what the cheapest option would have been for you for your daily ticket. And then the next day, a top-up thing over a period of time to give you the most efficient fares. And all of it's integrated. You've got one thing for all across the city. Discuss.
I just want to say that if you take stuff into public ownership, it should be free at the point of use. Make it fucking happen. Do better.
I don't necessarily need it to be free, although heavily
I
subsidised
have to
would be
Oh,
nice.
I need it
But-
not to be just to get. And I earn a reasonable wage. I really resent to get to work and back paying £7.20 a day for a return ticket. They can fucking eat shit for
So,
that.
I think that at a time when our entire planet is in fucking crisis and we need to get people to stop driving and flying, it's going to cost me 30 quid to fly down to London and back to have to stay with my sister. I would much rather get the train, but I can't justify spending an extra £200.
It's ridiculous.
Well, that's the same thing about the driving thing. It's cheaper for me to drive to work, and so pick a lane here. What are we saying?
I live 8 miles out of Glasgow. 8 miles out of Glasgow. I spend 2.5 hours a day commuting there and back. 2.5 hours a day. That's because I have to catch a train into Glasgow and then a subway out of Glasgow back to where, because there isn't anything direct to where I work. So I leave the house at 7:15 in the morning to arrive at work at 8:30. I leave work at 5 to arrive home at about 6:15. And all of that all of the time when I'm moving, I hope you see what I mean, when I'm not actually sat on a piece of public transport, I am stressed to fucking high heaven about actually making my journey. So I leave work at 5, I walk to a subway station, which is less than 5 minutes walk from where I work. But because the subways used to work really, really well.
Yeah.
They were scummy, but they were kind of cute. They were a bit noisy. They were. At peak times, there was a train every 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
They were great. So I could get off my train in the morning, run along to St Enoch, get on the subway. So that's 10 minutes on the subway, and I would be in work on time.
Has this changed? Because the last time I
Oh,
flew
yeah.
okay, that's how work. This is
So they've got new trains now. The new trains are very, very shiny and very, very white. They remind me of Eva from WALL-E. And they're incredibly uncomfortable. They throw you around all over the place. Apparently bits of them keep falling off. They're having huge issues with them. The drivers can't throw the doors back open anymore. So if you arrive on the platform and the door is closed,
hold the doors.
they can't do that. Once they press the sequence, the doors are closing, so you're just fucked. Sometimes even at peak times, it's as much as 9 or 10 minutes between trains.
What?
Uh-huh.
It was 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, I know.
Shitification strikes again.
And you can't join a fare up with the subway. So, for instance, what I do is I actually get a monthly pass and get a monthly pass to Exhibition Centre. Because Exhibition Centre is only about a mile away from where I work. So what I've started doing, because the subways are now so unreliable, is I can do that walk in 20 minutes. And there's a train that leaves for Exhibition Centre about 8 minutes after my train gets in. So it's down to platform 17, go to Exhibition Centre. That's only 4 minutes, that 20-minute walk. This still means that I now have to leave the house 15 minutes earlier than I used to, but that's better than having to leave the house half an hour earlier than I used to, which is what I have to do if I'm going to use it. All this for improvements for shiny trains. The old trains were fine as far as I'm concerned. You could have put a bit of soundproofing on. You could have spent the money, for instance, on bringing in the technology that we could all just fucking tap with our debit cards. Because at the moment, you have to have a fucking card that you've got to top up. The amount of times I've missed a train because I've got less than the price of a single fare on the card and it's not tied to an account, so you can't automatically top it up. Are you telling me that they couldn't have the technology that when your card drops below a certain level, the next time you tap in, it automatically draws a £10 direct debit if you wanted it to? But no, we haven't got any of that. We haven't got anything connected. All we've got is inconvenience. My train that I catch every morning is always late. It's about 2 minutes late every day. When it's 2 minutes late every day, That should just be what the timetable is. Stop pretending it's going to get in at that time. It's clearly fucking not.
My favourite thing is when the trains kidnap people. That's my favourite thing. So this, yeah, I know, you know where I'm going with this. I think you've experienced it that time of like, you know, you get on a train and it's telling you I'm going to go here and stop here, and then halfway through it's like, no, I'm fucking not. It's rapid till the end of the line, motherfuckers. Well, this happened. We were in Edinburgh. Yeah, like me out. We were in
He's land. No one can hear him scream.
Welcome to Dalmuir, bitch. We were in Edinburgh. I think this was for the Fringe, and we were getting a train back. Now, there had been an incident on the train involving some grouchy cyclist. I think he was a bit high. There was an issue. The police had to be called. Blah 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 blah. So anyway, the train got held up, that's okay. No one can stop that. It's what happened. And so we were all sat there and we're thinking we're on the train, we're going to stop here, here and here, and then we're eventually going to get into Glasgow, Queen Street at the end of the line. And then it was a packed train full of people for tourism, whatever else. We were sat next to quite a drunk couple that were sat across the table from us. And we were kind of conscious there was this sort of, I would say, about 13, 14-year-old girl that obviously I think she'd gone out with her mates to round the Fringe and all that. And she sort of sat with, I think it was like a small group of other people, but she was on her own, was the main thing. Anyway, this kerfuffle with the cops is going on. And then as the doors, I think, are imminently about to close over, you know, the drunk guy in front of us goes, did they just say that all the stops are cancelled?
We were at Haymarket, we were at Waverley, so at Waverley Haymarket. So we stopped at Haymarket and he was standing up. And when we were stopped at Haymarket, he went, by the way, they've just said that they're only stopping at Queen Street. And we were like, no, because we were all there. And he was like, I've just said it's all cancelled.
I think he asked, so I think, that's correct. So yeah, he came to sit down. I should have missed that bit. So he'd been slightly near to the doors. The point being, just to get the facts straight on this one, was a tiny little tannoy had come off going, all of us are now cancelled.
Yeah, in the station, not on the train, to say that all the stops are cancelled. So this one drunk guy said quite loudly to the carriage, did they just say all the stops were cancelled? And everybody ignored him because we're like, this drunk guy's just making stuff up. And I actually thought he was being a bit of a troll and saying it to make people panic.
Yeah.
But his girlfriend obviously realised that he wasn't, and said to the guy next to her, by the way, you said you're getting off at X stop. They're not stopping there. So he got off.
Yes.
The young girl across from us was sitting, obviously, she was like 14, she had her headphones in. I didn't hear this until we were about 20 minutes into the journey and they hadn't stopped anywhere else. And she goes, and we were talking about this, and she was like, wait, did you just say they're not stopping?
The guy who said, like, you know, did they just say this? You know, everyone's like, this guy's drunk. Even you and I thought the same thing. He doesn't really know.
But he is, in fact, the only person that's paying attention.
No, he was the only person. He was standing up so he could hear out the window. Nobody else to treat.
Well, he was further back to the door, so I think that was why at the time. But the point I'm trying to get to is that the screens they have in the carriages, which used to quite helpfully say, this is where the fucking thing's stopping, it would give you updates. It had, I think, just the letter A just ambiguously sat there doing fucking nothing. So that's your thing if you've got your headphones in, because even if you don't quite know the journey, you know, looking up, that's going to tell me where I'm going to be stopping next, what's going on. So even if you're deaf, you know, this is for ease of access. The internal tannoy on the train was not utilised, even though it worked. The driver did not contact anybody to let us know. So although we're going to focus on the little girl, what actually started to happen as the train had set off, so we're locked in, we're sealed in, there's nothing stopping this thing, and it is barreling towards Queen Street. And slowly but surely everyone went, I should have got off by now. And then it was like a slow stop. Yeah. So what my memory was,
imagine a Mexican wave, but slow and back.
I was on the outside, I'm on the aisle, and I'm looking, and you could begin to see the earbuds coming out, people turning around like this, and eventually arrived at this girl, and she also realised, and you know, this was a child, there was no way she was older than 16, and she was panicking about what I'm going to do. I'm meant to meet my mum, and I think her station was about roughly halfway, and this is like, you know, we're late on, one of the last trains,
yeah.
And everyone sort of rallied around her to help her out, and even the drunk guy was like, you know, we will pay for, basically, we'll get you a taxi, was his suggestion. But what we eventually realised was that it's not the last train. So what to do basically is when you get off at Glasgow, get on the other train and go back, and that was all fine. The point being, though, that ScotRail kidnapped a child
Yeah.
along with the rest of us. And the fact that that's how they opted to handle it. When it got into Queen Street, there was no apology. There was nothing about refunds. There was nothing about assistance for, tickets, nothing. Because, rightfully, as soon as the train got in, it should have been, we're really fucking sorry. If anyone's got to get the train back to the previous stop, there's your money. None of that fucking happened.
No. I was like, she's been taken.
Yes.
By ScotRail.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, there was no... And it's just, but this is par for the fucking course.
This is the point, it's normal.
And they're like, oh yeah, it's happened to me. I've been kidnapped too by the train.
So if everyone said it to her, everyone was like, this just happens. And watching, like, it was just...
This can't...
There's just a young 40 with all the optimism of, like, I'm new to the planet. It's going to be great. I'm in Scotland. What a time to be alive. And the slow death of faith and hope draining from her as everyone around her went, this is what the trains are like in our country. It's probably her first time on a train alone,
She went, they can't do that. And we were like, yeah, we know, but they're doing it anyway.
They're fucking doing it. And then for years we were thinking that it's the private company, but now we have to talk about it because it's the Scottish government's issue now.
I am going to defend ScotRail a little bit just because they've gotten better. And fuck me, you want to try public transport in other places. So, I mean, like, I routinely moan about the bus service to my village. There's a bus every 15 minutes out of our village. But, if you're trying to get back to the village, that's when it gets difficult. So the bus is leaving the village. That seems to actually work pretty well. If you want to leave the village, that's okay. It's like the opposite of Brigadoon. But trying to get back to the village, you encounter like ghost buses. So you'll be standing at the stop. No, it's not first. It's McGill's that serves us because we're sort of East End Paisley way. And you'll be standing at the bus stop, and you've got what's meant to be live tracking, which is meant to mean that it's like satellite tracking of a bus. And you stand at the stop, and the tracking says it's 2 minutes. It's 1 minute. The next bus is 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the live tracking on the app for where that bus is, apparently it's now at the next stop. It's never fucking passed you.
Yeah.
And apparently this is something that's got GPS on it. I don't know whether or not they've like popped it into a pigeon or fucking some guy is driving around a car with it in so that they can pretend to run services that they don't so they don't get penalised by the government. But there's fucking some...
Yeah. I do think first bus, I just want to say that my experience, and Laura had a very negative experience. They gave her a concussion once.
They ruined my life. They gave me brain damage.
Generally speaking, I would say that I've definitely found first bus to be vastly more reliable than ScotRail. And I think that, not just McGill's, but I think that the railways, I mean, I knew a previous job that it was better for me just to rely on the buses, even though it took longer, the reliability actually, basically it balanced out with the number of cancellations and delays.
If I took for me to use buses instead of 2.5 hours a day commuting, you're looking at 3.5 hours a day commuting for me, because I have to go all the way to Paisley and then all the way from Paisley to Govan.
But I think what I was experiencing was that on the train in say 30 minutes, but because the trains were always cancelled and shite, it was going to be over an hour anyway. So why not just get on the bus and know when I'm on the bus, I could sit and play on my phone for that time.
The ability of my service leaving is fine because I'm at the end of the line. Yeah. Same with the buses. I'm the end of the line. So like the leaving bit, getting out is actually fine. And the train service is actually fine. The problem that I have is because I live at the top of a massive fucking hill.
Yeah. I mean, you are quite remote, to be fair.
I'm not remote.
Oh, not that proud, but...
The head.
Well, I think... But I'm trying to illustrate the fact that, we are literally, 4 minutes from a train station where we stay?
The issues that I have are to do with sort of the general coordination of public transport. Glasgow's an enormous city.
Yes.
Absolutely fucking enormous city. In London, you can jump on to any bit of fucking transport using one payment system and it all ties up. Here, well, you have got Zone Card. They're fucking extortionate. You've got to plan in advance exactly what you're doing. And their argument is, oh, well, it's cheaper than buying 3 monthly passes for 3 different services. Yeah, well, no cunt does that, do they? Yeah, it's cheaper than the thing that nobody fucking does. Well done, lads.
Why do you think I always try to train Josh?
Yeah. I think that's just fine. But, I mean, in all seriousness, I mean, the easiest thing for me to do was to take my bike on the train and then get off one stop before Glasgow Central and ride to work, because that's only a couple of miles. That's dead easy. That was working really, really well. And then the trains started getting busier after the pandemic sort of died away. And on multiple occasions, the train was so packed that I could not actually get off with a bike.
Yeah.
With a bike and a back, not a huge backpack, but just, my normal little. So I couldn't get off. So I'd be fucking stuck going into Central, and I've got to get fucking out of Central and drive through, cycle through Glasgow traffic, which nobody saying wants to do.
No.
Like all of these things, provision for joined up things, like to be able to, like the trains that have got bike storage carriages that are basically also meant to be for everybody with a pushchair, everybody with a wheelchair, and also seats that flap down, so that just fucking idiot cunts sit in them, and then you get on with your bike and they just kind of look at you and wonder why it is that you're giving them fucking like laser beam eyes. It's like, and even stupid things like the fucking sign that tells them that they need to get up if somebody gets on with a bike is behind them so they can't see it. It should be on their eye, like, has somebody with a bike got on? Shift your ass. I am fucking sick of this. There are trains that have dedicated cycle carriages. You used to have a fucking guard's carriage. You used to be able to put a parcel on a train and pick it up the other end so you could move fucking straight in the UK in one day.
It's like we're going to put this sign on a tiny blue plaque right on the seat, when you could just have on the fucking window just bike section, like to announce like clearly this is what this is meant to be.
Not have any seats there.
And also just exactly, to remove the option entirely. I think that the thing that I think the problem with the trains in terms of public ownership is that I didn't know until after they'd done it, and I actually don't know if the person who thought this was a good idea even knew. We need to really change the infrastructure, the core, as in the rail, to build more track. We don't own the track.
Yeah.
They took ScotRail into public ownership. Of course, the rail with the track is owned by Network Rail. So you need to pick a lane. You cannot take the train into public ownership unless you take the rail.
Well, they don't. That's not.
Well, because they don't fucking do it.
Yeah, but the Scottish government can't do that. They can't seize. They
should. My point is that they should not have this. This was clearly not going to work. In principle, as with many things with the SNP, I agree in the principle of the idea that our infrastructure for transport is owned and operated by the public through the government makes a lot of sense, and therefore a bit like the National Health Service, it's free at the point of use. It's paid for through tax. Totally agree with that. The fall down here has been that because we're not independent and the Network Rail is owned by the UK, I do not believe this is a functional thing that can happen.
Yeah, but the problem that you've got is that the alternative is that that the rail is owned by the UK government and the trains are in private ownership. So the alternative is worse. So this is the least worst option now.
But I'm not convinced based on what's been happening for the last how many? Is it 3 years?
No, listen, trust me, I've been using the trains pretty constantly for the past 6 years. They've gotten a lot better.
So I disagree. I don't agree with that in my experiences.
In my the service that I've been getting certainly is better, but it's the lack of joined upness. That's the thing that infuriates me. SPT are a shower of shite. Everybody on the board there should have their fucking asses kicked. They should all get sacked and replace them. Like, fucking steal someone from London Transport. You need to have a joined up way that they can have one card that you can use across everything that's tied to a bank account that will just allow you to jump on anything and have one joined up fare. So, that for kind of like maybe £8 a day. That's what it is in London. It's like £8 a day to use anything all day long if you're jumping on and off.
It's ridiculous. They also did the whole thing with they scrapped the on-peak charge and then got rid of that, but then also put the prices up on top of getting rid of that because they weren't seeing enough people use it. It's like, hey, you're trying to get more fucking people to use the train. Not only is it more expensive than it used to be when it was under private ownership, it's also a deeply fucking actively unpleasant experience every fucking time. You're putting on less carriages, you're putting on less trains. That means that every train that arrives, is not fucking cancelled or delayed, is packed to the gills. You can't get a seat. It's just a miserable experience, and you're trying to get people to stop driving and use it, and you're fucking feeling miserably.
You don't have to understand that they are on budgets. They have actually brought down the price of the season tickets quite dramatically. So it used to cost, before they did the off-peak test, my season ticket was about £106 a month. It's come down to £91 a month. That's pretty decent. So I did the sums on this, and of course I get to use it at the weekends, and I do use it at the weekends. So actually, the price difference for me is about £3 more a month.
It's a temporary thing. So I did see them say that they had a promotional thing on for passes when they were when they were scrapping the on-peak thing.
No,
is this just a new price?
So they brought down the price.
I mean, that isn't. I was thinking about getting like a year pass for the train, but then I was also just on Rightmove looking at flats in the city centre, so I didn't have to get the train. I just kept thinking of like that bit in The Simpsons with Lionel Hutz. So it's like, if you lived here, you'd be home by now. That's what I think to myself all the fucking time, and I'm like waiting outside Glasgow Central, like trying not to get fucking stabbed, getting spoke to like 7 times a night every night by like people I don't want to talk to.
I think that the lack of sort of joined up thinking is a good, again, in principle, yes, this is all very good, but I think that the Scottish governments have quite a bad track record of saying things like, we're going to get everyone out of their cars and do this. So ideas that sound in principle like, yes, that's all very nice, but I know we're not talking about railways here, but an example would be like social housing recently that they've been constructing. But they're building this stuff, but in conjunction with all this new legislation around how you have to build a house now. So things like, it's got to have like an electric charge point on it. But the reality of this is we just need to build cheap houses for basically people on very low to no incomes to be put inside. But there isn't a thought process of, now you've legislated things about solar panels, all this other stuff's got to go on it, it costs more to build the fucking house. So what you end up with is the house itself now costs more. And not thinking about things like, if you're already on a low income, you're probably not going to have a car to begin with.
Probably certainly not going to have an electric car.
So this is a consistent pattern of, and I agree in principle, but the same thing with the taking the railways into public ownership. I'm not convinced they fully understood the project as they were taking it on. I'm sure at the time when they did take it on, there was some stories about kind of them discovering a lot of, particularly the platforms, were in terrible condition. And I think they've had to invest quite a lot of money of really upgrading them. Some of that's been quite positive. You said Annie's Land earlier on. They've redone that now to put, wheelchair lifts in, which just weren't there before and things like that. That's quite good. I'd argue actually they've made Queen Street a lot worse. The old version of Queen Street Station was better. They hate the homeless, therefore there's no seats, things like this. There's a lot of stuff that's not been that great, but they've obviously had a lot of kind of upfront costs, and that I think they have underestimated. I don't know if they've quite known the extent of taking this in. It's similar to things to several other past projects where when they first wanted to unify like Police Scotland, for taking it off the councils and bring it into one big thing. I think that was something maybe people thought we can probably do that in one term of government if we just chuck money at it. And then the reality is it's probably been 10 to 15 years maybe to actually get that into a decent state. I think that the issue I've got with it is when they are in Parliament making these kind of promises that in principle sound quite good, these are election winning statements, the fall down has been, the execution has now been consistently not good enough to a standard where the public feel the benefit. The fact that we are even having a discussion, your experience is different to ours, but I would say the consensus of people that Laura and I know is the railways have gotten worse, that this has not gotten better. The cost, I think, is ridiculous. I'm making the point about paying £7.20 a turn for me to get to and from work. Let's assume that I am on a minimum wage. I am working in a coffee shop. This is just for me to get to my job.
No.
What the fuck is this? And also, if we've just gone through a pandemic, the way that you want your high streets, your businesses to recover is get people fucking moving.
Yeah.
So you've got this complete, not really understanding, and I hate to sound like I'm defending capitalism, I'm not, but under the current way we have capitalism, in order to generate money that you can then tax and make the big thing go round in a loop, you've got to get this stuff right. And I really feel consistently they have failed to do that and understand that part of it.
So, and I'm going to say that as somebody that uses the railways at least 5 days a week.
Yep.
It has got better. And it's got better in little ways, like the mobile ticketing has gotten dramatically better.
The mobile ticketing is way better.
Absolutely great. I have a couple of niggles, like for whatever reason, you can't buy a ticket for the train you're on. You can't jump on a train at the last minute and buy a ticket. You've got to pretend you're on the next one. Random.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's great. I used to use them.
If you have a smartphone, because I say Robbie doesn't have a smartphone, so this is a nightmare for him because he doesn't use smartphone at all, which he just doesn't believe in them.
Well, no, but you can still get the old card. So I have before they bought. So when they brought in the off-peak experiment...
See, I'm going to be aggressively against the idea of ticketing at all, because I think one of the problems actually... I remember being a child before the barriers were in, and I thought the trains actually ran quite well then. And I think that one of the...
Barriers are a huge issue.
The ScotRail have... This is before the government took them over. I think the barriers are one of the most flawed ideas, because especially if you're at Queen Street, the thinness of this barrier, they are not built for that. The way that a railway station used to work would be that the one just up the road from us has no barriers. And it's the constructed design of the platform is meant to be in such a way that you arrive in a big open space, you go into a ticket booth and you take your ticket on the train and a conductor comes around and checks it. So what they've done is they've tried to retroactively add barrier systems into locations that were never designed to have the barriers to begin with. So therefore you get crush.
The problem that I have in the morning with being late is the fact that so many people are trying to get through the barriers on a busy rush hour train that it can take me up to 10 minutes to get out of Glasgow Central Station in the morning.
Because the design is so short. So the solution is remove
I keep it instead of Central a lot of the time, because if it's busy enough in the morning, especially if there's been issues with ticket machines. Obviously, some people will know about their phone, but also if they don't realise it until the time they get to Central, there's nobody coming around to sell you a ticket. Yeah. You've not got any signal to go in and buy a ticket. So then you've sometimes just got like a queue of like over 100 people. This is bad, you fucking shit. Because I'm like, I'm Scott Anderson, fuck you all. I can't stand it. I hate it.
Think about how much going to buy that infrastructure for those barriers
to maintain the contracts for that.
Like having conductors on trains.
Yeah, clearly it's one of those stupid things that an evil fat businessman has heard. Here's how you get to fire all your staff. Barriers, and they're doing it like this.
But you've still got two people standing at the barriers at Central all the time.
That's because the barriers are always freezing enough.
Well, this is what I was trying to say, was that you've actually, by installing the barriers, have probably had to take on more staff to not only maintain them, but as you've highlighted there, the opening and closing bit. The point being that if it's in public ownership now, I think that if it costs me alone, £7.20 every day to get to and from the office, now I can work from home submersively. I don't have to do it, but my contract, if it's decreed, that's what I'd be paying every single day.
Well, you wouldn't. You should get a monthly pass and it wouldn't cost you that much.
But the point being that in terms of taxation, would it not make sense? So if you can get the economy going by getting people moving around, so if it's free, so if we want to go and see a movie up at the GFT, for example, if we can jump the train for free, the cost of the fucking ticket's almost the same price as the fucking ticket for the movie at the GFT. So what I'm saying is...
This is when you've got a monthly pass, as I do, I go in and out of Glasgow at will, because I could go in and out of Glasgow at will on the same price.
But what I'm not grasping...
The thing is...
I'm not grasping the idea, though, of if this is paid for, but it's in public ownership through taxation, why are we paying a premium on top of that? We don't do that with the health service. So the way to me this should work is that this is in order to generate your economy, get people moving around. The more people are out in bars and restaurants and clubs, go to the movies and so forth, on the trains for free. If everyone kick about for free, they're going to get out of their houses, they're going to go around.
Yeah.
Therefore, just increase the tax a little bit and then make that happen.
You could say that about everything, though. Pretty much.
Yeah.
So you actually have to do your sums and make sure that it's actually
This
feasible.
is one of the issues.
But they didn't do that before. So this is what I'm saying. If they'd done this to the shop, okay, right, aye.
If even the Green Party is not in favour of free public transport, the reason is that if you make public transport free, business starts to use it and overloads it as well. So it ends up being a business benefit. What you should have is it just subsidised so that it's really cheap. I mean, you go to Germany or something like that, I think you can buy a year's fucking ticket that lets you use absolutely everything, including the ferries, for like £100 or something silly. And that's the sort of thing you should be having. You want a joined up ticket that lets you use everything, that records when you use something, so that you can have private provisioners in there, and when you use them, they get a chunk, they get the revenue, and that distributes the revenue that's been generated by the system across where it's required to support the infrastructure, and allows everybody to just go about their business without having to fucking work out in advance what the most cost efficient way is for them to do 3 journeys without it costing them 15 fucking quid. If you did your journey every day, you'd have a monthly pass. It'd cost you about 90 quid. That's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that. That's a lot of money, but it just becomes one of the things that's part of your budget. It should be less than that. It should absolutely be less than that, right?
This
But
I don't think they
I'm
did
going to
that.
defend the Scottish government because they are at least trying. You should fucking try getting a bus or a train in England. I've been up and down to England the last month quite a lot because I've had some family stuff going on. Jesus fucking Christ, it's bad down
It is
there.
much worse. I will
It's
say that.
fucking terrible. So I was having to go and visit my mum, who is now being moved to a kind of a small town, and the easiest way for me to get there was to get a train to a place called Congleton, which is a small town in I think it's Cheshire, but it's just on the border with where my mum is. And so I was going to Congleton, and I had in advance, like the Aspie's fucking prick that I am, worked out absolutely every fucking factor of what this journey was going to entail. So I checked the buses, I checked what time the trains went in and all the rest of it. I get off at Congleton railway station and go to the bus stop and have clearly and there's the bus is due 5 minutes after the train gets in. So far, so good. Except the train is 8 minutes late arriving. So I've just missed the bus. The next one is due in an hour. I had checked what the schedule was. I knew I'd got an hour. So I went and kind of did some stuff and came back and waited. Then the next bus didn't turn up. The next train came in and somebody got off that train and joined me at the bus stop in the wait for the bus that never fucking turned up. After about 20 minutes, we start making phone calls and I just organise and get a cab instead. I go on that night to complain to the bus company about this fucking imaginary bus. And I look on their website and I check the timetable because I think before I make my I'm just going to verify the timetable. They had somehow retroactively, I checked this timetable in advance and this bus had been due to run. I go on and all of a sudden, despite this bus being once an hour all day long, that evening when you looked at the timetable, there's a 2-hour gap between the one I just missed. The bus that I didn't take a photograph of the fucking timetable. Did you just think did I imagine that there was a bus due? Yeah. So they're actually not only have they've not run the service, they've actually been aware of the fact that they might get complaints and they've removed it from the schedules. I checked a week ago and the week before. This is fucking, and this is not a small, tiny little village or anything like this. This is a pretty major town joining up to the next town. There's one bus an hour and they don't even fucking run that.
I fucking hate buses.
I fucking hate buses too.
I mean, I hated buses before that bus gave me a concussion. I hate them even more.
I hate I remember I used to live in Shawlands and they'd got, I think they're called like the city sprinters or something like that. The ones that I remember stand-up comedian describing them as being like helicopters in Nam. They didn't fucking slow down properly. But they would slow down but not stop, and you'd have to fucking jump off and jump us.
What happened with Laura, that she was walking about to go down the top floor, about to go down the stairs, and that's exactly what happened. And Laura went flying down the stairs and head-butted the wall.
I didn't head-butt the wall. I knee-butted the wall. The reason I hit my head was because the pain in my knee was so bad that I passed out the next morning and I smacked it off the ground. But yeah, no, it was pretty bad. But the first bus to give them some credit, their schedule and their system and their automatic updates and like they're good. It's when you have all of these other bus companies that all have to sort of work together. Because I live out, my mum's house out in the middle of nowhere. And I've had, on what you were trading, so many times where there is one stagecoach that goes from where's Tuesdays into Glasgow.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the buses are like a little local bus company. But this one stagecoach has like the online tracker. And and I was like coming in the morning for an exam, and I was at the bus stop with 3 people who were also going to need to be invigilators. No fucking bus showed up, even though it told us that it was coming, and then it told us it was there, and then it told us it was left. And I was like, the next bus is in an hour, I've got a fucking exam. Because I was there with 3 invigilators, they had my back, so I was able to sit. It was fine. But there was no other alternative for me to get in.
Yeah.
Whereas the little local bus company who would take you to the nearest train station, they don't have an online tracker. They have paper timetables, and sometimes if it's raining really heavy, or if it's been snowing, or if it's too hot and the driver can't be bothered, or if it's just a particularly busy bus that day, they'll just miss my village completely, and you won't know until it's definitely too much time has passed for the bus to just be late because the next one's due in 5 minutes. It's like you just have to. It's just luck of the draw.
There's so many places up the East Coast as well where they actually have like all the old track from all these stations that they just sort of like went fuck it, or just close all this stuff down. Because this is when the car was invented. Not when it became.
Yeah, it was in the 60s.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Absolute fucking. There used to be 2 stations in my village. There was an upper and a lower.
Yeah.
And if the lower one still operated, that'd be absolutely brilliant for me because that's on the Bar Headline. And that's a much faster route because the problem is being at the top of the hill, the train has to go this incredibly circuitous route. So we go all the way around Darnley Dams, and because I stay at Neilston, we go all the way around Darnley Dams, then we can kind of go all the way through like Clarkston, sort of William Wood, and then all the way through Cathcart and Shawlands and all the rest of it. And it takes about 35 minutes. So it's good. Fucking drive all the way to work in like 25 minutes.
So this sort of network rail thing, is that itself a sort of perhaps underutilised argument for Scottish independence? As in, perhaps if we had our own, we could be basically we're stuck because we can't actually build upon the track we currently have because we don't own it, and therefore we can't expand.
Reinstating stations and stuff like that. They are working with network rail and stuff. Network rail are problematic, but that's not really the
How does it work though in terms of, so if we're like, okay, we want to reactivate the station, I think I'm right in saying is like under the Tesco in Mary Hill, for example, how do you even negotiate that? Was any of this considered, I think is the point. So when I'm talking about this idea of like, well, in principle I think it should maybe be free, there should have been some sort of plan, and you were talking about running the numbers, I'm just skeptical about does this just, as the Greens are as guilty, I guess, as the SNP would be on this one, is this something we just said, oh, in principle, that sounds like quite a good idea, but what I'm not super convinced of is like how much of that was really thought through. And I think it's almost
I think they took it back off the operator that was performing poorly. So what's happening now is that they are actually gradually bringing in little improvements to things like the ticketing, which is really, really important because actually that's really frustrating.
Well, we see who are these people though that are doing this?
The equivalent of an Oyster card. You used to have to fucking get your pass loaded onto this at an office. Then they brought it in that you could do that on your phone. That was actually pretty good. But these cards fail all the time. So sometimes you just be stuck and you can't fucking get out and it's not reading your ticket and you can't prove that you've got like 100 quid's worth of fucking train ticket on there and stuff like that. Now it's all in the app and it's all working really well. These are not nothings. I actually don't have that much of an issue with ScotRail, although the one thing I do fucking have a massive issue with is for some reason the app will tell you what platform a train is going from, but it won't have appeared on the boards. And ScotRail staff, certainly at Central Station, will try and fucking gaslight you that like it's not that platform. And do you know what? Some of them are really fucking rude. If it's not on the board, it's not happening yet. Well, why does it say the app? Don't trust the app. Well, why is it fucking in the app then? Why is it fucking saying that?
I do think, especially like in Glasgow Central, the way that some members of the public speak to the staff at the station, I think they're probably rude as fuck back because they just expect everybody to, when they give it, because like if somebody in the station gives me information about a delayed train, I don't kick off at the guy who works in the station because that's nothing to do with him. He's in the station same as me. He's just finding it a bit at the same time.
This is where I was going with that, because I was saying when we talk about like who these people are that now own it and are moving things around. So I mean, I would have thought it would have worked as basically they would have been like the fat cats at the top of ScotRail, essentially sort of not signed over, but the government's come in and taken ownership off of them. But presumably they retained all the staff, everybody more or less would be in place. So as you say, like if you've got an issue with, right, my trains are always late, you keep putting too few carriages on at rush hour. There's all these things. So like, well, if I can't go to the government and complain about it because ultimately the buck stops with them, well, what am I supposed to do? So I take the point of, okay, maybe they are trying, but I think that the cultural now, when it was in private hands, fuck that company would be the attitude. But now it's in public ownership. It's in league with a government that has we got to get everybody out of their cars. We got to have green energy. We got to do all this stuff. So if it's not delivering on that, you would feel that it should be something that's pressured in Parliament to improve. I take the point it is improving, but it needs to get better.
The number of people using it over the past sort of year and a half, the trains have gotten way busier to the point that they're actually too busy at peak times.
Is that not before they changed the pricing though?
No, still the train on my route is still as busy, but as I say, I mean, I go through all three Shorelands. I think overall ScotRail's not doing too badly compared to, I mean, as I say, the first fucking train I got down to England last month, the train out of Scotland to Crewe was fine. I got off at Crewe, and the first fucking thing that happens is the train that I'm due to catch is cancelled, but cancelled in a really incredibly irritating way where it's there, it's going to be running, you go to the platform, it's fine, it's on time, it's telling you it's on time, everything's fine. It doesn't turn up, it doesn't turn up, and everybody starts looking a bit uncomfortable and looking at their phones, which is still telling you that it's on time, even though it's 2 minutes after the time it was due to leave. And then eventually about 15 minutes later they announce that it's cancelled when everybody's already worked this out.
I'm just always a little bit triggered about the fact that, so it's one last thing on that kind of talking point, because you could apply the same logic to things like the NHS as well, where that seems to be the quite consistent comeback on this thing is clearly flawed. The general consensus I feel on the ground is this is not good enough. This is getting really shit. And I feel that the consistent message is, yes, but it is worse in England. I mean, everything is worse in England, frankly. But, at what point do we have to go, we need to make it good? I'd be going thing, I would say.
I'm a little bit defensive because I am actually seeing improvements. So somebody that uses it every day,
yeah,
I'm seeing little improvements of little conveniences that are coming in, particularly to do with the way you buy tickets and use tickets and get through barriers and things like that. I'm seeing improvements there. That's so far so good. What I am complaining about, really, is the lack of a joined up
a proper vision.
Exactly. We haven't got an organisation that's meant to be that. SPT is the equivalent of Transport for London, but they're a pile of fucking shit.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, this is actually why I didn't start ranting about this like 3 months into it. I thought, let's give a bit of leeway here, let's get them on their feet and sort of see what they come up with. But I feel that now we're kind of at that tip point of something's got to give, someone's got to change here to make those improvements happen.
I mean, with regards to ScotRail, I actually think they do have a sort of long-term vision, and they are just gradually bringing things in, and I think there are improvements. I mean, a good example, although it was annoying, the emergency timetable was a really good example. When I think it was the RMT had their overtime ban, it was obviously going to impact things. And ScotRail, rather than have loads of last minute cancellations on things depending on what they were going to be able to do, which would have really inconvenienced people, they took a decision. We're going to reduce the timetable until this is over. This is going to be inconvenient, but you will at least know when the trains are going to run. And they stuck to that. And that worked pretty well. It was infuriating, but it did.
I would defend that and agree with that, because one thing happened recently was I went uptown to see, I think it was a Donald Trump biopic, the day that I went to the GFT, and I took the train on that one. And what ended up happening was that I bought a return ticket basically for a service they knew was going to be cancelled, because this was the same night of the big storm that happened. That's a wee bit annoying, that if you kind of know really you're not running this, and on the app there was no warning prior to purchase, and actually on the app, on the train that I was supposed to be on, but I know that's not running, it was still listed but with a weather warning subsequent, after the fact. And I think there's definitely stuff there they need to tighten up for customer convenience. The last thing I will say on it is that I thought about the Fringe before. It is a terrible first impression for tourists. The year that we went through to the Fringe, maybe the first time you and I went together, we were packed on like sardines. And I remember hearing these American accents and thinking, Jesus Christ, imagine you flew in from the States and you got off at Glasgow airport, and this was kind of your very first impression of Scotland was like this, and it kind of ties back to that, but you gotta love, there is stuff here that really just isn't very good, and you need to make improvement.
and on this month your service is going to be much busier. So put on extra carriages, have a train run every 15 minutes instead of every half hour. Like make like plan ahead. You've got a whole year. Like this happens every fucking year.
Yeah,
they did it for Taylor Swift. Ironically, during when the Swift arrived, they all fucking clicked into gear and they adjusted the entire schedule for her shows in Edinburgh, and they put on more trains. They did much more. But on, as you see, the annual event that takes place every single year, consistently they've fallen down on that.
So we noticed that the Fringe was much quieter this year than it has been any other year I've been for the last 5 years. Obviously everybody's fucking skint.
Yeah.
Which I think just contributes, but also fucking 30 quid to get from Glasgow to Edinburgh now. It shouldn't. I don't think that. I don't know if the trains should be free. It certainly shouldn't fucking cost me more to get to Edinburgh than it cost me to fly to London.
Yeah, you're paying more for less.
So if you're trying to get people out, you're trying to you're trying to reinvigorate the economy. The Fringe is a fantastic time to do that. You've got a bunch of people here. I can't. That's more than the price of like fucking 3 shows at the Fringe just to get from Glasgow to Edinburgh.
These days, if I want to go to Edinburgh, I'm more inclined to go on the coach. It only takes about 15-20 minutes longer, and it's a fucking fraction of the price.
I
get a day return for it.
I agree.
Because
I would don't know what it's about Edinburgh.
Well, I know, yeah. But they shouldn't sell tickets to a train that is unsafe in how fucking packed it is.
Yes.
But even when you were on that train, you couldn't, like, because we were stopping at all the other shops, people had bought tickets for the train and they couldn't get on. There was literally physically no room to stand on the train.
Yeah, my training in Lotto is like that often.
You shouldn't.
That's why, because I get at the end of the line, I get onto an empty train.
Yes.
But by the time you get into kind of Pollock Shores area, through Shawlands and stuff like that, Queen's Park, it's dangerously full. And before now, I've actually got off at Mount Florida because the train's already been so full. I know that by the time I get to sort of Pollock Shores area, it will be impossible.
These carriages are also, they were never designed for this. So when we were on, it wasn't that time, it was the last time this year, but when we went through, and what I observed was you could see on the back of the seats where they used to put the ticket, it used to slot in. So you'd have your ticket and you'd be on seat whatever, you'd walk on, you'd find the corresponding ticket above it. These carriages were built for big intercity travel. These are meant to be that. Whereas they're using the same design and cramming you on like sardines, because there's an argument actually that the wee short runner carriages they use for when we're here locally actually might work better for that purpose because they're more spaced out. You've got there's things designed to accommodate standing passengers.
It's the urinal solution for trains, isn't it? They got all the seats are just like just facing the one way. They're all packed together quite tightly. Whereas you've got these big, and they've got the tables and all that, and they're sort of like. You've got 4 cunts sitting having a really a time with their wee pre-mixed gin cans and everything at the table, but everybody else is just fucking packed in, standing up for.
I would suggest, you do not need a fucking table on a commuter train. Just go around for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. You don't need that.
No, you don't. So we'll just do the urinal thing.
Get rid of
everybody.
You could get.
But this is what I'm saying.
Get an extra row of seats and wear that table.
This is the point I'm making.
See the amount of times that I've got on the train and the toilet is never operational, and I'm like, it's literally like 10:30 at night. Everywhere else is closed. There's nowhere else I can go, and then I have to walk home for 10 minutes, bursting for a pee because the toilet once again is broken. Fix the toilet on a single train. Do you have a single train with a toilet that works?
You always be doing it. It's on piss.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Yeah. It's like the enshittification thing of that back in the day, that carriage was designed where there was no standing. You had seats because they still have the slot from the tickets used to go. So now the service, we're paying more and more for the service and it's getting worse and worse. But my point is that I believe if it's now we're paying for it also through taxation, I can't understand like that the some numbers have gone very badly wrong somewhere with this. I do not really get a sense of pre-planning.
The cost of providing it free would be
not free, but I'm saying because I get that, but why would I feel they've barreled ahead with this in the way that they've barreled ahead with a lot of things without they be fully taking it on board.
When a franchise fails, the government picks up. And to be honest with you,
Okay.
I've got no issues with the way it's being run in that way. And there are incremental changes being run. But what I'm talking about is the lack of coherent, joined up transport. And that's for us regionally. And I'll bet you anything it's the same in bloody Dundee and Aberdeen and all the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
You need these, you need one ticket that lets you use all of those different services. These days, everything's a smart card. Everybody knows, like, all that data's being collected. They can work out how to distribute it. This is not fucking beyond our wits.
Yeah.
That's definitely a good point about like it not being joined up, because in the UK, like your rolling stock is owned by like pension funds and insurance companies and stuff like that. Then your track is run by someone else. And then in Scotland, you've got your train companies run by the government. And in England, you've got all these other private ones. And then your buses are run by someone else. Yeah. And then, your tram or your underground is someone else. So it's just a complication, which I can see how there's inefficiencies in that. But it doesn't necessarily need to not work. It's just not having a strategy there to work with that system.
Exactly.
P.G. O'Rourke wrote a book about he's travelling around the world, looking at all these different systems and the way they run their society. And, you could go to like Japan and you could go in a private Shinkansen train. It's an amazing experience. And then you can go to France in one of their high-speed ones run by their government. And it's, a similarly good experience. At the end of the day, it's not really down to your kind of ideological makeup of how you think things should be run or paid for.
Yeah.
It's just the outcome at the end of the day that matters.
Yes.
Your consumer isn't going to go, I'm not going on that train because it's ran by that company I don't like. You just get on your train and, your experience is what it is.
I don't even have any issue with like private train operators or anything like that. I think that you ought to have all the routes. I think you ought to have it that there's like a state provision of core services, and then let other people run additional ones if they want, as long as it can be meshed into the network. Same with buses. There should be like a core local council run option, and then you can have private.
There's no meaningful
add-on
competition anyway. So
one ticket should always fucking do you for all of them, and they get their revenue if you use their service, and that'll encourage them to run services where there's revenue.
Where I was going with it was kind of what you two have just said there, which is I think that the Scottish government, particularly the SNP, do have, they're into the idea of what makes the joke in the account, big government, sexy social. They like to kind of add a centralisation concept. To your exact point, I think there might have been ways for the government to legislate to get these separate private companies to operate more cohesively together. But I think what they've done is they want to actually control all of it. But I think that the talent versus ambition is so skewed. I don't believe that their average transport secretary we've had for years now, and it probably wouldn't matter if it was a Scottish Labour guy or a Tory either, has the capacity to deliver on this. I think that kind of gentle influence of, right, we're going to give free bus passes for pensioners, that type of thing, and legislating across the idea of trying to improve ScotRail, but maybe not going, right, we are going to take it all together, would be kind of how I would probably have seen it. I don't know what the alternate timeline looks like with that, but I just get the sense they've bitten off more than they can chew with it.
There's kind of an economy of scale as well within a small place. You've only got so much budget to work with and so much talent to work with to be able to work out how to do things better. So I think that's a difficulty, especially when you're working against a government that's specifically, in Westminster, that's against what you're trying to do.
Yes, exactly.
In terms of like the financing thing, if you decide that you want to do it by taxing slightly more, the problem with that is that there's so many other things that you could spend that money on. As soon as you say, well, we're going to put the tax up by 2 pence or whatever, it's just a bun fight then amongst every other department who also wants that money. So,
and while there will be economic benefits if you make public transport way cheaper and everybody uses it a lot more, and there will be economic benefits of that, they will be slow to come in, and you've got the expenditure up front. So it's one of these things that's almost impossible for us to do when we can't borrow. I think at the moment I'm seeing a massive improvement in little coordinated things to make your daily life easier. I would get rid of the barriers, to be honest with you, and I would fucking employ more people to check tickets, because the idea of squishing everybody through at rush hour is fucking irritating.
Yeah.
with regards to individual stories, they're always annoying, and there's always, the like getting kidnapped on the train. There's always stuff like this that happens, and it shouldn't, but it is going to. How they respond to it. So I mean, again, with the big storm where they just said, right, we're actually going to cut off services at like 7:00. From 7:00 tonight, there's going to be no trains. We're not going to pretend we're going to run a service. And this is because it's in public ownership. They're not worried about facing fines for not running trains or anything like that. They simply say, we know it's going to be dangerous. We know there's going to be a cleanup. We know there's going to be issues. So we're telling you with 2 days notice, there won't be any trains.
Yeah.
Make sure that you've made other arrangements or don't travel. Rather than pretend to run services and have people stranded and have the ramifications of that. I think there's much more focus on the best outcomes for passengers, but it's a slow process and you can't fucking turn that around overnight. As I say, my argument, my issue really is to do with the lack of joined up fucking thinking. SPT already exists. They've got the zone card. Instead of making it something that you've got to plan in advance, make it like the Oyster card works. Make it so that you are it charges you the best possible rate for what you use. So if you use a simple version, like you use one train a day, but sometimes you need to do something else, you'll only pay that extra for the days that you use it and it'll work it out efficiently rather than you have to fucking do calculus in your head to work out in advance what your best option is if you need to use 3 different operators.
Aye.
Rant over.
Yeah.
Now can we talk about passengers on public transport? You're all a bunch of cunts standing in the doorways, using your phones fucking loudly, getting up to the barrier and only then fucking getting your fucking ticket out.
I think we should be allowed to carry cattle prods when we go in public transport.
People that start fanning around, for whatever reason their ticket doesn't work. And this has happened to me. If my ticket doesn't work at the barrier,
You move off to the side.
I fucking get out the way.
Yep.
Because there's 9 people behind me.
And the guy has to tell those people to move because they don't have the common sense just to do it themselves. And that's usually the time where the guy just gives up. He's like, fuck it, barrier open, just go through. And he just stops caring, which of course invites the question, why is the barrier even there? Because a number of times, particularly in Central Station, but often at Queen Street as well, they do just give up. And they're like,
Oftentimes,
on you go,
it's like
on you go.
open.
Yeah, it's
For a second
completely
time,
cheaper.
like,
It's just open and just
End that contract, any contract relating to the barriers, end it now, rip them all out and just go back to the way it used to work because it worked fine. We'd agreed for decades that worked fine. I cannot fathom, and that wasn't, to be fair, the Scottish Government's call on that one. That was done under ScotRail.
The barriers have been there for about
ages.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I mean. But I just think that they're the worst thing to have happened to it. So yeah, I think one
Speaking
thing.
of passengers, I was a really bad passenger once, and I didn't mean to be, but I was getting the train from London, and I was meant to be flying, and at the last minute I couldn't find my fucking passport, so everybody else I was with was on the plane. I was like, yes, I'm getting the train on my own then. So I spent the whole journey like on the phone with my pal, and there was like a guy like across the aisle from me who kept like giving me dirty looks. I was like, what's his fucking problem? And like one time his phone went off and he got up and like left the carriage, and I was like, all right, dramatic.
Oh, were you in the quiet carriage?
I was in the quiet carriage, and I realised this when I got off. I stood up. I didn't even know there was such a thing as a quiet carriage until like I stood, because I was like 18. I stood up to like get my bag and it like that, and saw like quiet carriage. Please be respectful of other passengers. And I was like, I would like to die. I would like to fucking die.
The public thing of just not understanding, let people get off the train before trying to get on. At Queen Street, that's particularly kind of gobsmackingly bad actually at times.
The one that drives me nuts is when the train's busy and there's more people trying to get on, and you get somebody that's hovering at the end of the corridor because they don't want, between the seats, because they don't want to walk down between the seats, presumably because they're getting off in like 2-3 stops. So they just stand there and everybody else is piling on. And I was sat watching this the other day because I've always got a seat
To the back.
going in because I come from the end of the line. So I get on the train,
Right.
sit down, and then get to watch the carnage. And there was this woman and she just wouldn't move. And eventually someone would move. And the face on her, fucking hell, she was fucking tripping herself up with her fucking face. And then about 12 other people obviously were then able to fucking move out of the way, and there was more space. But it's just like, stop being a dick.
Yeah.
Stop being a fucking dick. Get your feet off the fucking seats. Stop fucking having loud conversations. Stop fucking playing tunes on your phone full fucking...
Who does that? Why has that
I don't know.
more of a thing?
Yeah, talking your phone out, like, yeah, holding it away from your ear on speaker to have a communication, but the song...
You're not in fucking Star Trek. Stop it.
I know.
And, like,
Yeah.
I'll tell you another fucking cunt move is the people who, when the train's quite busy, they sit on the outside seat, leaving the inside seat empty in the hope that nobody...
I'm just in it.
I make a beeline for those ones. Like, excuse me. Fucking make sure I get my elbow in them. Fucking bag on my lap like this. Thanks.
It's not that my experience on airplanes has been significantly better, but it is definitely better that the decorum of being stuck on a plane, people kind of know to like shut the fuck up and behave and like, you know, not play their music. But it's very weird how, even though actually, at least my experience of kind of intercity buses is better, generally speaking, on this kind of decorum level as well. But the trains are an absolute fucking free for all. Completely.
If you misbehave in a bus, the driver's just going to go, oh.
Yeah.
Whereas on a train, you're just left to your own devices. It's just...
They still have conductors on them to a point.
Yeah.
But the over-reliance on barriers. So again, I would get rid of the barriers and have maybe a couple of staff on the train at all times.
The trains are so busy and it's such a big route. We sometimes have 2 conductors on our trains.
Oh, really? Wow. It's
It's a buzzing. It really sort of peak times does that happen. But even there, you know, if you've got one conductor responsible for 3 carriages, there's hundreds of people.
Yeah. I was getting a train from Larkhall last year, and there was a guy who initially I thought he was on the top in a hands-free. Turns out it wasn't. He was just fucking mental. And he was, because I was like, oh, whoever he's talking to on that phone has done something to really annoy him. Wasn't he on the phone?
It was him.
He was insane. And he stood up and pulled the emergency stop thing. And I hadn't even noticed what he had done because he had just done it so deliberately and went and sat down. So then obviously the train stopped between Larkhall and Merritton. The driver came through. It was just me and this guy in this carriage. So I'm making deliberate non-eye contact, the opposite of eye contact. I don't exist. So the driver came and went, who pulled that? And he went, and he just stood up and lamped the driver.
No way.
Properly attacked the driver. And he was a massive guy. Attacked the driver. Then the driver was like Liam Neeson from Taken, and fucking I looked away. I ran into the other carriage looking for a conductor for somebody else to come and help because it was just me. Nobody there. Came back into the carriage like 2 seconds later, and the driver had the guy like in a chokehold on the seat. Not a chokehold, but he had him like restrained on the seat, and he was like, "Don't worry, like a guy should be in that one." So like I went and got the other conductor, but it was like there was 2 people in the whole train. And this guy kicked off, and I was like, there should really be...
Even at the platform level, so the refurb of Queen Street, we've commented a couple of times that when they refurbed it, there's like the area, so if you're, as if you're walking up from the underground towards Queen Street Station, so if you know where Dow's Par is, it's like on the side entrance, that little bit before you went down to the underground platforms used to have at least a newsagent's at it, and there were several shops like around, and a lot of that's been stripped right the way back. I'm sure that I'm right in saying that Central Station used to have like newsagent stands years ago on the lower platforms that would sell stuff, and just that idea of like there kind of being more like non-passenger people present, I think would be a bit of an assurance. And I'm very confused as to why, again, in terms of kind of money making, you know, getting things going economically, even for our local station here, the way that isn't integrated more. Like, I know there's certain stations that used to have things like, you know, you'd actually be able to go and get like a bacon roll, or like a roll at it and stuff like this, little shops, and that all seems to have gone away. Now, I know the pandemic will have had an impact, but my memory of that was it slowly fading off before the pandemic happened. And I think sort of encouraging people in, and this is again with come back to the Queen Street refurb of, right now we've got like a fucking M&S, and it's not really what you need for like a fucking train journey, you know. And I think some of those choices, they could be a bit more savvy about offering people opportunities.
So the Network Rail is the biggest commercial landlord in the United Kingdom.
That's exactly.
And that most of their revenue that comes in to actually fund the tracks is from those little franchise venues, which is presumably why it's like £9 for a sandwich in Marks and Spencer's.
It's also like you would think, see, if you worked in a Burger King or a Starbucks in a train station, you would be the most efficient Burger King or Starbucks worker because every single person that you're serving presumably is in a hurry because they're going somewhere. So why are they the slowest workers, and why is the food always so much worse but it's so much more expensive? Let's do a whole episode about the Burger King at Glasgow Central. Does it even still exist?
I don't know.
I know that all of the bars that have closed down that were internal in the station, because I thought there used to be 3 and that they're all gone now. And I just think again that I mean, I take the point, like, saying make it all free is maybe a step too far, but definitely what you were saying about significantly reducing the cost of moving people around.
Germany, you can buy one ticket and it's the equivalent of something like 10 or 15 quid a month. So it's something quite...
It should be less than a pint.
Yeah, like maybe 20 quid a month, but it's something really quite low that lets you use everything. All the buses, all the trams, all the trains, all the ferries, everything. Nationwide.
Yeah. Because I think you're in a situation where Glasgow is dying in its arse. I know the kind of running joke is like, fuck Edinburgh, but I mean, the city centre is in major trouble right now.
It's really bad in some places.
I'm a huge supporter of like the Glasgow Film Theatre. Everyone should go to the GFT. Fuck all that other shit. But the problem is, as I say, the cost of actually getting there. And now because you are going to pay. You're 100%. There's no way to avoid it. If you want to get near to that, you're going to have to pay for your transport to get there. Now, we're not that far out, but even if you had a few more stops either side, very rapidly that's heading towards at certain times like 7, 8, 9 quid. And I just don't think that is acceptable. I think £2.50-ish. Fine, that's not an issue. That's the same equivalent of buying a sandwich for your lunch kind of price. That's an inbuilt thing. You can accept that. So and ideally for free, but I'm taking that would be fine. And that's how it used to be years ago. And now
my argument would actually be that what you really, really need to be pushing is the national kind of universal ticket that you can buy, and that you can maybe pay on a direct debit across the year, like you do your fucking TV license and your road tax and stuff like that just gets you onto everything, and it would bring in a guaranteed huge pool of money. And then the tourists, you can make the tourists pay, but it's for people who live here.
I think
that's a good point. I like that logic a lot, actually. That for people that actually live here, to come back to the taxation thing, we're being taxed, and some of that taxation should, in theory, be going towards this. We should get some kind of perk. Whereas if you're just you're here from New York or whatever, well, you're tourists, you pay more. That I like that a lot. So that makes sense.
Well, I highly recommend everyone gets their electric vehicle of some sort, because it's been good. I've got a car and a bike. And it's absolute class, especially now that I'm on a tariff now, where at night I can charge things up for pennies. Yeah, it's like 7p per kilowatt hour or something. It's unbelievable. Like the car, I don't actually charge it from like 0 to full, because you don't do that. But if I was to do that, it's like less than 4 quid. It's like £3.70 or something.
What's your range?
It's about 190 miles or something.
That's brilliant.
And it's good. Children can't hear you coming either, so it's easier. I was talking to my dad, got an electric car, and there's like a wee swing park on his estate, and he goes, I just need to crawl round this corner. He goes, so they can't hear you coming.
They use sort of like little e-scooters in Amsterdam for Domino's Pizza, and because they're so quiet, they all sort of play noises, basically like Dutch for yummy, 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 yummy.
Yes.
Coming.
Some of the electric bikes in the city centre are quite dodgy for that.
Oh, fuck me. There's as well. You feel... it's like you have to broach the subject so carefully because you feel like a racist, but it's like, fuck's sake, guys, that you Deliveroo cunts, could you all just fuck off? Stop doing 20 miles an hour on the fucking joint use paths, you cunts.
I got taken out by a Deliveroo biker when I lived in Govan Hill, and the whole day I had been talking about how I'm going to go and go to Taco Massam on my way home, get tacos for my dinner. I've been talking about it so much that when I left work that day, everyone was going, enjoy your tacos, Laura, and I was like, I will. Went, picked the tacos up, and I was walking across from the train station to my flat, and a delivery driver came out from behind a van, like a parked van, and fucking knocked me over, knocked my tacos all over the street. But like, I did the thing of like, oh no, it's fine. Like, just in the moment,
actually in shock.
Yeah, it's really fine. Don't worry about it. Because I felt bad for him.
Me off my bike because he just came barreling around a blind corner on my side, and you're so winded, and my watch is going off saying, it's like, fucking iRobot, you appear to have been in an accident, fuck off. And you don't take yourself down, like, no, it's fine. And then afterwards you're thinking, actually, I'm fucked. And he fucked my wheel, and my fucking knee was all banged up. And
I was going like, I was scared, and I got in and I shut the door, and I was so upset.
The first time you told me that story before you told about when you went into shock or whatever, I really thought you were going to react like in Kenny in South Park when Cartman eats the skin off the chicken in the KFC.
Definitely, I think that after I was alone, I was just so upset.
Yeah, just burst into tears. But yeah, the only thing about the electric car, because I'm kind of on side with this too, but I don't know. Again, we're sort of talking in like paradoxes a little bit, because we on the one hand get everyone out of their cars because it still was terrible for the planet to build these fucking things. So on the one hand, I'm kind of like, yes, that's better, but we're still going to have congestion, just like a better kind of congestion. Whereas we said this years ago about, we were slagging Elon for the Hyperloop and stuff like this. I mean, the solution is just have better public transport. So I mean,
it
to be
is
positive, let's aim on that.
you're always going to need, you're always going to need sort of individual cars to a certain extent. So they need to be as good as possible.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
The Sinclair C5, if we just didn't have the vision.
Yeah.
I tell you what, I just had to sell my mum's mobility scooter, so we had to sort of bring it back up from down in England, and it was stashed at work for a bit, and we were all having a go on it at work during lunch. Tell you what, disabled people have been keeping a secret just how much fucking fun they are. If it had more than a 10-mile range, I'll be honest with you, I'd have abandoned ScotRail and ever been using it to go into work.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah, I'm disabled.
There's a guy who was across from me, out the like assisted accommodation, and every time he spoke to his caterer, she was like, oh, he was in the dual carriageway again. It's for like the police like keep getting reports of like this guy in a mobility scooter like on the motorway, and like, oh, that's Peter. He's like, oh, do some right. Okay.
If all we're all going to be working from home anyway, can we not just do away with transport altogether and just never leave the house?
Maybe that's why like I've got too aggressive about it, because obviously I don't have to use it, but I do feel that if it was of a better standard, I'd be more likely to be out and about. And I think maybe that's why the kind of stimulating the economy thing sort of like hits a chord with me, because I feel that like I'm kind of in here more than I would want to be. If it was easier to be out and about like almost every night after work, I would want to jump up and I would be at the GFT more and things like this.
So I
that's
think
the frustration.
That's one of the advantages for me, for instance, because now I've got, although the peak ticket trial was great, I was still having to buy a daily ticket, and actually that was really, really irritating, because you're meant to buy a ticket for a specific train, and I'm always in a rush getting up to the station in the morning, and there's like 2-3 different trains I can be on. It's just like, and they used to be a bit picky if you were on the wrong train. They've realised that
you can't actually select the right train now.
Yeah, it's fucking impossible. But it's just a little bit strange. We were running up the hill trying to fucking do like
activate
my fucking. So it's much more convenient to just have the monthly pass, and I can just come and go anywhere along that line at will, and I actually do now a lot more. So on the weekend I'll like pop along to the.
I don't doubt if I had to go out, like if I had to go to work every day, I would be doing what you're doing. Whereas it's more the kind of like the luxury of being able to, like, as when I get the mood to go uptown, it would be nice to have that be a pleasant experience, as opposed to, as you're highlighting here, the kind of mess that it all feels like at the moment. It's like, and also that idea of like, if the weather's just a bit wobbly, like not even that bad, all the trains are cancelled. The day that happened, I had to spend, a taxi home was £30 for me to get out of the city centre, which was the same cost as the return flight, I think, to London for you, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And therefore, that's where, like, why are you so upset about all it? Well, that's why, basically, the infrastructure is so poor. And now it's in public ownership. Who else can I blame but the government?
I'll tell you something that is really annoying, is that the last trains out of Central are kind of 11-ish. I missed a train last night. I've been out with friends from work, and I got the subway. The train was due to leave at 5 past. I fucking hauled ass from Buchanan Street to Central to fucking get on that train, and arrived fucking drunk and fucking panting onto the platform, and jumped on the train that was on, and it was 5 past exactly, and then the train didn't leave, and I'm a bit drunk, and I say to the guy on the ScotRail fucking shit, "Is this the Neilston train?" And he goes, "Oh no, that's just left." Like, motherfucker, I was here, those 5 past. So the train's left early. right? The train's probably left 30 seconds early, but
Yeah.
That's it.
so does I had to get a cab, £56 fucking pounds
Yeah, that's what I mean.
because it's over the boundary.
Go London twice for that. I don't know why you'd want to. This is the fucking worst place in the world.
I
But
think if you miss the last train, they should give you those things like they get in cartoons on the rail tracks where it's just you handle did that then.
Law and order.
Alright. It's another fine mess you've got us in.